Dust clung to Maya's boots like a stubborn memory. She walked with quiet certainty across the gleaming marble floor of Iron Hawk shooting range, its polished tiles reflecting her worn jeans and faded olive jacket. Her duffel bag, a military-grade canvas pack with a stitched-on patch reading "Property of M.K.," hung loosely from her shoulder. Heads turned. Not out of recognition, but out of curiosity laced with amusement. This was Iron Hawk, after all, the most elite, members-only shooting range in the country. Designed like a private country club with metallic silver walls, touchscreen kiosks, and soundproof firing bays lined in carbon fiber. Visitors arrived in luxury cars and tailored suits, not second-hand boots and silent footsteps. Maya paused at the reception desk, waiting. The young concierge behind it didn't meet her eyes at first until the awkward silence forced him to. Ma'am," he began, unsure if ma'am was the right word for someone who looked like she walked out of a surplus store. "Are you with one of our members?" Maya's eyes scanned the range behind him. "No," she replied, voice even and low, "here to shoot." "But this facility is by invitation only," he said, voice rising. "We're not open to the public." Before Maya could respond, a voice, deep, polished, commanding, cut through the tension. "Let her try." All eyes turned. Victor Delaney, CEO of Hellion Defense Systems, strode forward, flanked by his entourage. Silver hair slicked back, dark suit unwrinkled despite the heat, cigar dangling between two fingers. His watch alone cost more than the average family car. Next to him, Sloane Delaney, his daughter, 20s, surgically perfect, with a permanently raised eyebrow and a phone that live-streamed her every move. She whispered something to her phone camera and giggled. Victor looked Maya over with the amused detachment of a man observing street art. "She's got the boots of a soldier," he mused, "but the face of someone who's never held a proper rifle." Sloane laughed loudly. "Oh my God, is this like a TikTok prank? Are we being punked?" Maya said nothing. She simply unzipped her duffel, revealing her personal earmuffs and gloves. No flashy equipment, no logo-emblazoned gear, just tools, clean, used, and cared for. Victor motioned to the manager. "Give her a lane, let's make a show of it." "Seriously, Dad," Sloane snorted, "this is peak hobocore." Maya was escorted to lane 12, a private bay, glass enclosed, digitally controlled, usually reserved for VIPs. She stood silently while the staff snickered behind her. Sloane whispered loudly enough for the room to hear. "She's not even wearing a range jacket. You have to wear branded gear here. It's like law." Victor chuckled. "She'll fire one round, miss the target completely, and walk out. Let's humor her." Maya adjusted her gloves with slow precision. The whispers floated around her like smoke. "What's she holding? A rental? That thing's practically prehistoric. She probably doesn't even know how to chamber a round. Watch her flinch at the recoil. Better record this." But Maya didn't flinch. She stepped up to the console, selected the 150-yard target option, and watched as the paper target slid downrange like a ghost. Then calmly, she picked up the pistol, a basic 9mm standard issue, and took aim. But she didn't fire. Instead, she paused, closing her eyes for a full 5 seconds. A breath in, a breath out, the entire range fell silent. "Is she meditating?" Sloane mocked, voice high-pitched with amusement. And then Maya opened her eyes. Still silent, unmoving. Her finger squeezed the trigger. "Pup." A single shot echoed through the soundproof glass. The air smelled faintly of cordite. No one spoke. "Target hit," came the automated voice. "Inner ring." Sloane frowned. "Lucky shot." Victor narrowed his eyes. Maya turned to the assistant who'd mocked her earlier. "Another 9, please, same distance." He blinked. "9 what?" The soft click of the chambering mechanism echoed in Maya's mind. The room, still in a state of hushed disbelief, had not yet fully processed the first shot. Now they were waiting for her next move. She was in control of the situation, if only for a moment. "Okay, what's the real challenge here?" Sloane's voice cracked like a whip across the silence. "You going to hit that target again, Superwoman?" Maya didn't respond immediately. She simply recalibrated her stance, adjusting her body weight ever so slightly. She could hear Sloane's sharp, condescending laughter rising in volume behind her. The younger woman's sharp voice grated on her nerves, but Maya focused on the task at hand. Her finger slid gently to the trigger. "Pup." The second shot rang out. This time the bullseye. The assistant turned to the screen, expression blank. Target hit, center ring. Sloane's expression faltered. She couldn't believe it. She crossed her arms tightly, scowling. No way, this is rigged. She's got some sort of magic powers or something, right, Dad? Victor Delaney didn't speak right away. His eyes, once filled with bemusement, were now narrowed in concentration. He adjusted his posture, as if taking a more serious interest in the woman before him. His gaze lingered on Maya for a few beats longer than necessary. But Maya wasn't looking at him. She didn't need to. She was already preparing for the third shot. Another click, another round. You know, Maya said quietly without looking up, if you can't handle the heat, it's better to stay out of the kitchen. She was talking to Sloane, of course, but the room heard the remark as if it were aimed at everyone. It was a challenge wrapped in a veil of calm indifference. You think you're a tough one, don't you? Sloane spat out, her fingers tightening around the phone as she filmed the moment. Her voice was high-pitched, but Maya could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Maya didn't answer her. Instead, she fired her third shot. Pup. Target hit, center ring, the automated voice confirmed. The sound of Sloane's laughter died in her throat. Victor Delaney raised an eyebrow, an intrigued smile spreading across his face. Not bad, soldier, but we're just getting started. He motioned for the assistant to bring over a heavier weapon, one designed for advanced shooters. Let's see if you can keep up with something a little more challenging. Maya didn't blink. The moment the assistant placed the new weapon in Maya's hands, the room fell into an eerie silence. This was no ordinary gun. It was sleek, heavy in her grip, with a cold metallic sheen that caught the light. The Desert Eagle, the iconic piece favored by those who crave power over precision. She could feel its weight pulling her stance forward and the slight tremble in her hands from the tension of the moment. Maya didn't flinch. She had seen weapons like this before, used them even. But this was a display, a show of wealth and ego, something that Victor Delaney's world valued more than anything else. Sloane's voice broke the quiet. Come on, are you going to show us what you've got, or are you just going to stand there looking like a deer caught in headlights? Her words were biting, but Maya remained unmoved. The younger woman's insults had become nothing more than background noise to her. Maya was no longer the young recruit who'd been taunted by her peers in boot camp. She was the woman who had learned to let the world talk while she kept her focus on the mission. With slow precision, Maya adjusted her stance, feet slightly apart. She brought the Desert Eagle up to her eye level, steadying her breath. The weapon's weight pressed against her, but she welcomed the feeling of its challenge. Victor Delaney watched her, now genuinely intrigued. His arms were crossed, leaning back against the polished wood of the lounge chair, the aura of a man used to getting what he wanted radiating from him. But today, something about Maya was drawing his attention, something he couldn't quite place. You know, he said, voice low but tinged with amusement, I don't think I've seen anyone handle that particular model as calmly as you. You've shot this before, haven't you? Maya's lips curled slightly into a tight smile. You could say that. Sloane, eager to reignite her mockery, sneered. Well, no one cares about your history, okay? Just hit something this time, for once. The world's not waiting for your big reveal. Maya adjusted her focus, her eyes narrowing in on the target. The laughter behind her, the murmurs of disapproval, they were just noise. The only sound she cared about now was the thrum of her pulse and the steady rhythm of her breath. Sloane's taunts blurred into the background as Maya's gaze sharpened, every fiber of her being focused on the target. She could already feel the trajectory in her mind, the perfect line between her and the bullseye. She raised the Desert Eagle slightly higher, her body instinctively aligning with her intent. One breath in. She slowly exhaled. Her finger wrapped around the trigger, the tension building between the sensation of steel and skin. And then pop. The room held its breath as the bullet streaked through the air. Maya lowered the gun. The room waited, expecting something spectacular, perhaps some kind of dramatic ricochet or a missed shot. The automated system spoke first, but the words were clear and unambiguous. Target hit, center ring. Victor's eyes narrowed, a rare glint of respect flickering behind them. He hadn't expected that, not from her. The Desert Eagle wasn't easy to master, yet she had fired it as though she were born for it. Sloane's smile faltered, her fingers trembling as she scrolled on her phone, trying to find the perfect angle for her live stream. The comments had gone from mockery to uncertainty. The first shot had been perfect. She wasn't sure if she wanted to laugh or backpedal. Maya didn't acknowledge the crowd. She didn't need to. The target was the only thing that mattered. She wasn't interested in fame or praise, but in the knowledge that she could handle any weapon put before her. "You've got guts," Victor Delaney said finally, a rare note of approval in his voice. "But let's see if you can keep it up." He motioned to the assistant again, who quickly set up another target, this one farther away, a challenge that only true professionals were meant to handle. Maya simply nodded. Maya's heart beat steadily, the rhythm matching the pulse of the shooting range. The sharp smell of gunpowder lingered in the air, and the metallic scent of spent rounds was something she had grown to recognize. But this place, the Iron Hawk Range, was different. This wasn't just a range, it was a place where the rich and powerful came to flex their wealth and ego. Yet in this moment, Maya was focused on one thing: precision. She stood in front of the counter, facing the new set of targets that had been set up in a row. Each one was now placed at different distances, some 50 yards, some 75, others all the way at 100 yards. In total, there were 10 targets lined up, a challenge like no other. And Maya, she was going to hit every single one. Victor Delaney had raised the stakes more than just a single shot. It was now a full round of 10 shots, 10 targets, 10 chances to prove herself. Sloane was still looking at Maya, the disbelief evident in her expression. Her fingers hovered over her phone, ready to capture every moment of Maya's so-called failures. But for all her snark, Sloane's confidence had shifted slightly. There was something about Maya's composed presence that made her uneasy. She couldn't deny that Maya had talent, even if she hated admitting it. Victor's gaze had turned from casual amusement to something more intense. He leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. There was a momentary flicker of a challenge in his eyes, and Maya felt it. He was intrigued. He wanted to see what she was capable of, and that, in a way, was exactly what she had been waiting for. 10 shots, Victor said, breaking the silence. His voice was deep, authoritative. "You hit everyone, and I'll personally make sure you get a spot in the next big competition. You miss, well, let's just say, I think you might have trouble getting anyone to take you seriously after that." Maya didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her body language said it all: calm, focused, ready. The assistant brought forward a pristine set of ammunition, expertly loading them into the chamber of the Desert Eagle. The metallic click of the gun's safety being released was the only sound that could be heard over the buzz of the room. Maya's eyes remained fixed on the first target, the nearest one at 50 yards. She didn't look at the others, one shot at a time. Victor's voice was a low murmur. "You know, not many people can hit all 10. Most of them miss 2 or 3 if they're lucky. Some of the so-called pros here can barely hit half. It's a tough challenge." Maya didn't flinch at his words. She had heard this kind of thing before. People underestimating her, writing her off before the first round even started. The first shot was almost effortless. She took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and pulled the trigger. A perfect shot. The target crumpled, the center ring a small hole with no deviation. Maya barely moved, simply shifting her focus to the next one, 75 yards. Victor raised an eyebrow. The rest of the room had fallen silent now. Even Sloane was no longer speaking, her phone camera forgotten for a moment. All eyes were on Maya. The second shot was a little more challenging. The target was farther, but Maya had been trained for distance. She knew exactly how to adjust for the wind, for the curvature of the gun, and for the recoil. She placed her hands securely around the Desert Eagle, ensuring that there was no slack in her grip. One more breath, she adjusted her stance. The shot rang true, another bullseye. By the time Maya reached the third target, 100 yards away, there was an undeniable sense of expectation in the room. The range was eerily still. It was no longer just a shooting contest, it had become a spectacle, and Maya was the star of the show. She took another breath, steadying her hands. Her mind didn't wander, didn't stray. It was all about the next shot, nothing else. The target shattered in the center, another perfect shot. The crowd was getting quieter now, almost afraid to breathe. Maya continued. One after another, the bullets flew. Each shot was clean, controlled. Each target hit. There was no hesitation, no sign of the nerves that might have gripped someone less experienced. By the time Maya reached the 10th and final shot, the tension in the room was unbearable. The rest of the range members, those who had been watching her in judgment moments ago, were now silent. Some had even stepped closer to get a better look at what was unfolding. Victor Delaney's face was unreadable. Sloane stood motionless, her phone hanging limply at her side. The only sound that could be heard was the quiet hum of the air conditioning, the only motion the subtle rise and fall of Maya's chest as she prepared for the final shot. The target was farther than all the others, a full 150 yards. If she hit this, it would solidify her place not just in the range's history but also in Victor's eyes. She steadied herself, adjusted her stance, and looked through the scope, aligning her target with the precision of a surgeon. The world seemed to slow as she took another measured breath. The sound of the bullet cutting through the air was almost drowned out by the collective gasp that followed. The target, now just a tattered piece of paper, was completely destroyed in the center. The room was silent for a long moment. Victor Delaney slowly uncrossed his arms, his eyes never leaving Maya. He didn't speak right away, just studied her, as if trying to figure out what had just happened. Finally, he broke the silence with a single word. "Impressive." Maya lowered the Desert Eagle, unfazed by the silence that had fallen over the room. The challenge was over. She had won. Victor didn't smile, but the respect in his eyes was undeniable. He glanced at Sloane, who was now staring wide-eyed, her expression a mixture of disbelief and awe. She had thought Maya would fail. And Maya had just proven her wrong. The clink of ice in glasses, the murmurs of casual conversation, and the sharp scent of freshly lit cigars filled the air around the Iron Hawk Range. The tension from Maya's flawless performance still hung thick, and the remaining members of the crowd were just beginning to murmur amongst themselves. Victor Delaney, arms crossed, eyes still focused on the quiet woman who had stunned them all, didn't move. His attention was as rapt as it had been during her perfect shots. Maya was more than just a good shot. There was something else about her, something deeper. Her composure, her precision, the way she handled herself in the face of judgment. It was as if she was made for this, like she had been forged in some crucible of intense pressure. A figure suddenly emerged from the shadows at the back of the range. The man's presence cut through the lingering hum of conversation like a knife. His posture was military, rigid, confident, and unmistakable. His uniform, though no longer the crisp blue of an active officer, still carried the weight of his past, a long, decorated career in the armed forces. "Do you know who she is?" the man asked, his voice low but commanding as he stepped forward. Victor turned to him, his brow furrowing. The man was older, gray streaks ran through his hair, and his face had the hardened look of someone who had spent years on the front lines. He had a presence about him that made the room fall silent almost instantly. Maya's eyes shifted toward him, something in the way he held himself. It was familiar. She had seen that kind of posture before. Military, no doubt about it. Victor, clearly startled by the man's entrance, slowly let the cigar between his fingers fall to the ground. "I know enough about a lot of things," Victor replied, the casual tone in his voice now laced with curiosity. "But clearly, you know something I don't. Who are you?" The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gave Maya a long, appraising look before his eyes shifted back to Victor. "General Altaf," he introduced himself simply, "retired Army commander." At this, the crowd shifted uneasily. Retired generals didn't show up in places like this unless there was something serious at play. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't just the man's title, it was his eyes, fixed now with a sense of recognition. "General," Maya's voice was quiet, but there was a tone to it, almost a question, though she was already sure of the answer. "What are you doing here?" The general's face softened slightly. "I came to see if the rumors were true, and it seems they were." Maya's hand tightened briefly around the Desert Eagle, but she kept her face neutral. The past, the one she had buried so deep within herself, was rising to the surface once again. Victor glanced between them. The tension in the air was palpable now. The room seemed to have held its breath, waiting for something monumental to unfold. "What rumors?" he asked, his voice lower now, more intrigued than before. Maya didn't speak immediately. Instead, her mind traveled back, far back. The memories of distant lands, of chaos, of bullets flying past her. She had been someone else then, someone not even close to the woman standing before Victor and his guests now. She was Maya, just Maya, but in the past she had been something more. The roar of helicopters filled the air, drowning out all other sounds. She crouched low in the dirt, eyes locked onto her scope, her fingers steady as they traced the outline of her target. It wasn't a person she was aiming at. No, her target was much bigger. She was looking at a military convoy, one that would pass through a narrow valley. She knew exactly when it would come through, and she had exactly one chance to stop it. Her heart didn't race, her breath didn't falter. Maya was a sniper, trained to handle impossible situations, to be the calm in the chaos. This was what she did. It was what she was born to do. She took a deep breath, her body perfectly aligned with the rifle, the scope's crosshairs dancing over her target. The bullet was going to be her only shot, her only chance to stop the convoy from getting to the compound. The timing had to be perfect. Her fingers wrapped around the trigger, one squeeze. The sound of the shot echoed across the barren hills, a sound that signified both life and death. A moment later, the convoy was disabled. The explosion sent shockwaves through the ground, throwing debris into the air. But Maya didn't celebrate. She wasn't in the business of celebrating. The mission had been successful, but something else had been set into motion that day, something she hadn't anticipated. Hours later, as she and her team made their way through a war-torn village, a sudden burst of gunfire rang out, followed by an explosion. It was an ambush, a trap. She had saved the convoy, but it was at the cost of her team. Now she was the only one left. The sniper had become the hunted. It was then that she had made her final decision. She wouldn't leave anyone behind. Maya made her way to the wounded soldiers, dragging them to safety, covering them with a barrage of return fire. But the enemy was closing in fast. They had no time to escape, and Maya knew it. In a split-second decision, she called for an extraction. Minutes later, the helicopters arrived, and in the chaos of landing, she lifted 47 soldiers, 47 men and women who would have otherwise died on that battlefield, into the chopper with her. It was a miraculous escape, one that still defied all logic. But Maya had done it. And after that day, she disappeared, vanished from the world's radar, leaving behind a legacy that few would ever know about. Victor was silent for a long moment. The gravity of what General Altaf had revealed hung in the air, thick as smoke. "So this is the woman who," Victor started, his words trailing off as if he were still processing what he had just learned. "Yes," General Altaf replied, his voice unwavering. "Maya saved 47 lives in one of the most brutal ambushes our military has ever seen, and she was gone the moment the operation ended. She vanished. No one knows where she went until now." Victor's expression shifted. There was something in his eyes now, a mixture of awe and something else. He looked at Maya with newfound respect, a hint of something deeper. Maya stood motionless, her face impassive. The past was the past. She had left it behind. She wasn't the same person anymore. The woman who saved 47 lives was gone. The woman who had taken